Welcome to MOWTalks. I've begun to realize that there are some things that God has placed upon my life that I can't get away from. Sometimes you look at some of the things that God's called you to do and you realize, I have to actually do something, that I can't just simply hope that one day it'll happen by osmosis. It won't. It's got to happen through actual, practical, hands-on going for it. When I think about the Apostle Paul, I recall that after he was called, there were things that he did in preparation, and it would take a number of years, almost 2 decades, but not quite. And after that period of time, he went. And after he began going, he didn't stop. There was no retirement end for Paul. When he ended his days, he writes to Timothy and he says, Tim, I've done everything I know possible to do. I've poured out like a drink offering. No, I don't have a mantle to leave to you. I finished the mantle that the Lord gave me to do. I completed everything that he asked me to do. So now there's something waiting for me, but you, Tim, you need to fan and to flame the very things that God has called you to do. It's time for you to get on there. I began realizing a number of years ago that calling is not something that you can get away from. You know, Jonah had a calling. Jonah had to go to Nineveh, and God decided, I'm going to send you to Nineveh, and you may not want to go, but I'm going to get you there. And if you want to take a ship route, and I'm going to make sure that you get a fish route in the midst of that ship route, but you can go directly and it'll be a lot easier on you. And I begun realizing that, calling, I actually realized this many years ago, calling is something you do whether or not you get paid to do it, whether or not you feel like it's beneficial to you, whether you feel like it's gonna bless you or not. It's something you have to do. It's where Jeremiah says, God, you've got this message shut up in my bones, and I have to release this message regardless. And sometimes the circumstances don't give us that wonderful opportunity to say no. For Jeremiah, he would end up having to give the message even though his whole body was into mud up to his armpits. There are things that God calls us to sometimes that are not pleasant, but they're calling. And as a result of that call, we have to walk it out. As I've been contemplating doing these MOWTalks, I thought, Lord, what is the most important thing that I can give to another generation? And I believe that, particularly from the book of Malachi, where it talks about the fathers towards the sons, I began realizing I need to do something that's releasing a father heart to the next generation. I need to father them. I need to speak those things that a father would say to a son or to a daughter. Those things that would have greater meaning and greater value even after I'm gone. I'm not planning on being gone anytime soon. But along the way, my hope is that I will be able to develop fathering in those who need to become fathers. That I would be able to speak those things that are true, those things that are meaningful for you as spiritual sons and daughters to me or to some others. When I began traveling back in the early 2000s, I remember the Lord telling me very clearly, he said, Danny, you're not a revivalist. You're not an itinerant. You're carrying something different. I said, well, what, Lord? And he said, Danny, those who carry that will go and they will graze off of people often. They'll walk into certain churches and they'll go back to certain churches and different ministries because there's adequate funding. There's a good check at the end of it. There's a good honorarium. And so they'll play that whole field and get into a circuit where it matters because of what's coming in. He said, those are itinerants. And he said, itinerants basically come with a message that ends when they leave for the most part. There may be some fruit, there may be some healings, there may be some pointed things that might happen in a few individuals, but generally, they're not easily related to. We have a church scene today where there are so many that are just inaccessible. They're not really like Jesus. Jesus didn't have bodyguards. And when he did have the bodyguards who thought they were the bodyguards, being the bodyguards around Jesus, Jesus told them, stop it. Let the kids come here. That there were individuals who broke through. The woman with the issue of blood. Others that would interrupt his thoughts because they were being rude and obnoxious, like, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. There were those who broke protocol. They just simply wanted Jesus to touch them. When I speak about fathering, I believe that I'm speaking to those who really want to grow up in all respects to become like Jesus, because that's who I want to be like. I just want to be like Jesus. I remember many years ago, Bob Jones was talking to me because I was getting invited in a number of places, and Bob said to me, son, you're going to too many people and in too many places, and you're just staying too busy. You're going to burn out. And I went to the Lord. I said, Lord, what do you want me to do? He said, Danny, I just want you to do what I did. I said, oh, what did you do? He said, I went to everyone who asked. And I began realizing that God was giving me something that I needed to be able to give to others, to relate to others, to model for others. And that was the fact that Jesus has provided every day of rest I've needed. He has provided vacation time as I've needed that. Jesus has always done that, but it has never been because I have simply said, I'm not going there. There's always been yes. Yes is always the answer in the kingdom. Jesus, of course, he wants to heal. It's never if it be your will. He says, I'm willing, be cleansed. And so too, when it comes to ministry and ministering to others, it's very important that you understand that we are called because we're called. We've been set apart for purpose. And so as I'm speaking to those who in some way, shape, or form are sons and daughters in the faith, sons and daughters of those who are following the Lord, what I want to tell you is that to function like Jesus, you have to be accessible. People have to be able to get to you. They have to be able to speak to you. And I'm not just talking about those that you want to speak to. I'm talking sometimes with those who may have some serious issues. But your calling allows you to let that happen. When I was praying through this about what I wanted to demonstrate through MOWTalks, I thought the best thing I could do was teaching others how to become fathers, even those who are fatherless. And so a part of that is the fact that we become like Jesus, as I said before, but then secondly, we begin responding to people as Jesus would. Jesus didn't play with ideas and thoughts. You know, the rich young ruler came to him, and there are many individuals in today's church who would recognize, oh, this is a rich young ruler. I need to be careful what I say, because this guy could end up supporting my ministry. Maybe I need to be careful. Jesus says to them, go sell everything, give it to the poor. Jesus spoke truth, and fathers have to speak truth. And so through MOWTalks, my intent is to speak truth to you. I intend to speak truth to you in whatever form that's coming out as truth. You know, when Jesus spoke to the crowds, he never sought the crowds. One of my favorite statements was by Francis Chan, where he said, you know, if Jesus were to plant a church, mine would be bigger. And he was referencing the fact that we basically fall into the prey of figuring out how we can gather people. and that would give us some kind of notoriety, some kind of validity, that if we have a lot of people, that means we are really, really following God. Jesus himself said, no, with this crowd, I want you to eat flesh and drink blood. And to them who'd never experienced communion, that was like cannibalism. Jesus sent them all away. He said to his disciples, are you going to leave too? They said, where are we going to go? You're the only one that we know who has the words of life. And so as we begin these MOWTalks, I want to encourage you that we're headed into life. We're headed into that place in your life where, whether it be in areas of marriage, whether it be in areas of finance, whether it be in areas of relationship, whether it be in areas of just walking with Jesus every day. The intent that we have for MOWTalks is that you'll be able to walk with Jesus a little better, a little bit more following what he's got for you. I promise that I won't come up with the cure-all answer for anything. But what I will come up with is what Jesus has taught me through the years. Bless you. You have an awesome day. Jesus is walking with you.